it takes practice within the funnel of your life to actually like alleviate a certain nuanced suffering, because we don't have to call suffering suffering, we don't have to call discomfort discomfort. They are what they are based on what our elemental self is reacting to, you know a certain alchemy external effect of any circumstance. And one second. Okay, so you know like it's good to like pause. I guess my subconscious is like kind of realigning to like different contexts of reality, because when I pause, like there are other things still in fluid mechanical effect, because everything is having like a unique rate of change where it receives different accelerations and decelerations within itself differently. And what do I mean by that? It's like, because like even the law is transforming. Like everything, our psychology is transforming, the global psychology is transforming. Obviously underneath that is the global environment, economies and ecologies and geography, reshapings within, whatever, however time and matter relate, because time expresses itself differently, as too does matter, as too does space, as too does synergy to no synergy, which is energy, because you have to ask what is energy. And all those being their own accords, they interact in their own unique prime elemental combustions, and then settle, and then resemblances of how those energies in themselves settle down and slow down and condense, and how they condense, and they all have different relationships with each other again on a different yin level of how there's like activity and how there's no activity. How I'm talking about a particular type of samadhi, because there's different modes of samadhi, and the different modes of samadhi is the equalization point between thuriya, the equalization point between deep sleep, and the equalization point between your dreaming self, transcending and equalizing all the karmas of your seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensional self in the in between, realm of you and your highest self psychology. So so everything's being transcended. Like if you read between the lines, that I just transcended the whole education system in 1 second, because it's how we're learning from a particular multi-encased, multi-dimensional, multifaceted package of being with the energies of the elements, and their different, mechanics and nuanced laws and dynamics of how they're going to different modes, and how the human is that and it's not that. It's its own new expression of all the elements, expressing itself in a unique specimen, be it any specimen. So, so aside from everything transforming, it's like, on one side note, the side note being like, and not dwelling over it too much, because I get like, the nuanced, you know discomfort and the radical change, but it doesn't have to be like that. So it's the mastery within the genetic physiological code. Could you unleash the real most legit potential, the real most legit, regeneration, the real most legit healing with, the mind of like, the top down god or whatever, with, the emotions of that, because there's different types of samadhis. The different types of samadhis are equating to different fields of no thing, because no thing, which is the lesser of all things at its mathematical equalizational point, that means there's an equalization equilibrium point between the fields of consciousness, respectively. From a Vedantic perspective, they're saying there's four states of consciousness in the grander scheme of just the energy of the mechanics of the bigger picture. It's the Turiya, which is the all-encompassing consciousness. The second is the deep sleep. I guess, the receding reflection, shadow dawning of that, which it's a positive neutral inversion of where the consciousness is taking the original deep is first form, deep sleep, 2 out of 4, third, all of that infinite division, infinite combustion, infinite realization. And then the shadow of that is just more solidified, more densified within the different contexts and expressions of darkness to even slow that down even more so. The sixth through the first dimension and the zeroth dimension being, simultaneously connected to the highest dimension. Because we're coming from that and we're going back to that gradually. So, aside from like saying who like what are the effects of judging? What are the effects of unwarranted judging? Like the judgment that's unwarranted, that's not necessarily like even needed. It's just caught up in like a detrimental, phase piece form of, different types of unknown irrelevancies respectively towards the bigger picture. And there was a different point I wanted to make about time, but it will come back. Yeah, so like just kind of relating like time, even time itself, its element, could be transcended by seeing the equalization point. And I kind of rescued that whole like, that whole train of thought kind of swiftly and cleanly and pristinely, because the pristine reasoning and the swift reasoning and the clean reasoning behind it was, time is expressing itself in different dimensions, in different forms, and the time also has like something of a starting point, simultaneously a ending point, neutral termination. And that neutral termination point is where nothing is the lesser of what all things are expressing in that mode of consciousness. Four modes of consciousness: Tudia, deep sleep, dreaming, and waking external, physical reality, external physical, masculine, promoted, going searching like what's, paradoxically and simultaneously, like the realm of the darkness which the demons inhabit, that's neutral. The realm of darkness, that's neutral. We're inhabiting it, and we're projecting our ignorance upon a new field which isn't really like how anything should really be. So if we're projecting badly towards the outside on a bigger picture level, we're just hurting ourselves and judging ourselves, because we are the field. And if we don't know that we're the field, then you're just kind of like you're in a mind game, or you're in someone else's illusion. You're in someone else's like, program, and however it is nuanced. And within that, like, what ethical laws are these big data corporations really following? Like for them to compromise something, not just in the like the not just in the bottom up perspective of just like, okay, material civilizations, material societies, material, demographics, material, geopolitic, centric rings, which every country's being uniquely separative and connective to one another in their own respective ratios, because there has to be in the future a future balanced, hyper equilibrium, hyper intelligent kind of like, what do you call that? Unified, like not just unified galactic nation of a global council, political council, but like just like, a global one, just a planetary one. And with that being said, there has to be some type of intelligence of like, on a bigger note level, like whatever you would like want done to be, like whatever you would want done to be, whatever you would want that would be not done to you, don't do it to another being, because that's just like the energy law. Without knowing that little principle, then that just shows how you're conserving yourself on an energetic level. And if you don't know how to conserve yourself on an energetic level, then you're breaching. And like kind of like on a subconscious level, like on a subtle sub nuanced level, we don't even know how we curse ourselves, because we're being influenced by like narratives and just story scripts that are false and promoted with certain frequencies, symbols, sounds, and characters and narratives, which are predicated off of like different components of falsehood. So that's an illusion, that's program, that's the Neptunian material game within the quote-unquote material realm, this big spectrum of the angel and demon realm connected together, because we're all like seeing the psychology of the demon realm. We're all seeing the Bhu Mandala, the shadow of the demon realm, that's that's connected in one sense to one threshold to the heavenly realms, just on this energetic neutral thresholds of the environmental field matrix composition that it fills up in any parsec of time and space, inhabitant particle of what that in itself is. What is matter, time, space, and energy put together? It's you. It's from God, and that whole travel is you've always had that. So you were always something of a certain for. And like deep sleep, that could be or thudia, energy, super energy. Deep sleep, like super matter somehow. Dreaming world, just the space, new space of it all, the space of it all. And then the waking world, just the time of you, how we recollect the first three modes of consciousness, and how we're reflecting upon how we came from Tudia, how we came from deep sleep, how we came from dreaming, what we've fallen from, different versions of whatever our predecessors created from it in its highest balance and exaltation. That is the essence of what God represents, preserving that in itself, the most advanced, next level tier of like all of it, because it's like, because what's being cultivated out of that is the pure harmonics of that, which transcends, the psychological demon realm. Because you can't just say the demon realm is that without the context of it. So bring some context to what you're saying if you want to have an intellectual conversation or not. Or just be caught up in like, Neptunian shadows, and because obviously the astrology will get transcended harmonically in how it will, and hopefully like there is some natural credence to the raw uruhu transmission. What do I mean by that? For me to put some more context, like how could we trust like from what source did it ultimately, like where did he channel it from? And wherever he ultimately channeled the voice, it had to come from some sort of star system. So if it came from like just on a neutral energetic material level, so if it came from some sort of star system, it had to come from some sort of star group. So it was like some sort of like Syrian agreement, Syrian draconian, because astrology is draconian period. It's talking about the snakes, it's talking about the dragons, it's talking about the evolution of the human, and like how we're micro expressing the power of the planets eventually, maybe not, within potential, maybe not potential, within graduality, within grace, or not, and then unnot, and seeing like how all of these conundrums of just the many micro circumstances, it's something of a standard neutral not, because it's encased with certain components of time, space, matter, and energies from higher oversoul consciousnesses, and we're borrowing, the whole solar system is borrowing from the oversoul's consciousness, because we're derived from all the building blocks of that, and how the oversoul of the super universe, they already mastered all the principles of this. This is a resetted experiment, all of us, because we've already lived this life in a certain context of time. We've already did this. We're replaying it at a different time and seeing how this version of the game of life unfolds. And I've had that, and for me to forget that experience and remember that experience, it's an intellectual ultimatum for me. And what I mean by intellectual ultimatum is like where something will finally conclude, where the mind will actually find ultimate supreme peace. And what do I mean by ultimate supreme peace? Where the mind in its most fullest intellectual expression on a different version of self doesn't need to know anything, because it knows everything about itself automatically, because it automatically produced it and mastered the intelligence. Because I'm explaining, if you read between the lines, I'm explaining even what the HUNABKU is talking about too, and how, like, their text and how they're like describing God. I've read many blogs, respectively on Instagram. Like, I don't know if Instagram's a credible source for like mentioning the HUNABKU, but I think it is, because there's a lot of data being transitioned to a particular website, and for that particular website to be in this like ever domain of a higher time and space broadband, materially and spiritually, that we don't know of, then that's the irony proxy principal factor of dynamics of like where how we could actually put into context how we are actually not as advanced as we think. And even 5 years from now, there's going to be a big acceleration. But even then, 5 years from now, there has to be a super universe that's already more advanced than us, even from this point now to 10 to 100 years from now, because there's different universes operating on different cycles and rhythms and paces of time, different macro times, and we're a micro product of a different macro experiment, and we're resetting ourselves in different contexts and different environments and different fields. So this is beyond like everything that like anybody's talking about, because I'm bringing like what Hunabku, human design, and Buddhism and Hinduism. I'm bringing ground basis context and context basis to like how that's already being lived, been lived, and will be lived in its own grace, according to how much grace that tradition of all of what I just said could bear grace within itself. The graciousness, and like not attributing that to any like behind the scene mini entity that tries to like like postulate a word that they are, when it's more natural and it's more ever free than you could ever even contain it thereof as. Thank you.